Hello, everyone, and welcome to Africa Fire Mission's weekly virtual training session. My name is Mike, and I'm the programs director here at Africa Fire Mission. We're so happy that you took time out of your busy schedules to join us for today's training. Today, I'll be leading a class. We're going to continue with our month looking at incidents that happen along the roadways. So we'll be looking at vehicle fires today. Please stick around. This is going to be hopefully a very informative class for you. Before we get started with class, though, I'm going to pass things over to Jose. Jose is our fire safety officer here at Africa Fire Mission. He's going to start us off with a couple words of encouragement.
Thanks, Mike. Sorry, I have a very bad internet connection. I hope I will be more clearer as we move on. Uh, yeah, guess what, guys? Next month is Firefighters Day on the 4th of May. And what came in my mind this week was, man, how much are we appreciated out there? Do people even recognize us when we are out there to make a difference? Well, most likely or not, people usually don't recognize our efforts. But for me right here today, I just want to let you know how important you are, how valuable you are, not only to the community, but to the people who care so much about you. Guess who they are? Your family. You're doing this for your family. You're doing this for the community. Always remember that you can stay encouraged. You can always remember that you're valued, even though people don't walk in with some mandazis or some burgers to say, "Hey, thank you." Just know that you are valued. So with that, I just want to tell you thank you for your service and keep on serving God's creation. Take care. God bless you all. Back to you, Chief Mike.
Thank you, Jose. We appreciate those encouraging words you always get us started with in these trainings. And of course, all the work that you've been doing to try to advance things in the fire service throughout all of Africa. We don't take that for granted for sure. Before we get started with the training, let me address a couple of administrative issues. If you stick around for at least 70% of today's training, which is usually about 40 or 45 minutes, you can receive a certificate of attendance for today's class. If you get cut off or you can't complete the class for whatever reason, there's some other options if you'd like to earn that certificate. Um, if you check out our webpage at www.africafire.mission.org, go to the resources tab under training materials. You'll find a link to a Google Drive folder that contains a recording of it'll be today's session as well as all of our other trainings that we've hosted so far this year. If you watch the recording of the training and answer a few questions that demonstrate that you've watched the video and that you've learned something from it, we can get you a certificate of attendance for those classes as well. So I encourage you to check that out. Keep an eye on the chat. I'll drop a link to that at the top of the hour. When we get finished with the formal portion of our training, we're going to transition over to tea time. Errol, who is Africa Fire Mission's fire safety advocate, is going to be hosting our tea time. And it's a time for you to ask some additional questions about today's training or just to do some networking with other firefighters from throughout Africa. It's a great chance to really discuss anything that's on your mind. So invite you, if you've got the bundles, to stick around and check that out with us here as well. So I think with that, I'm going to start to get things set up here where we can get started with today's class. As I mentioned before, I am the programs director here at Africa Fire Mission, try to keep all of our projects running behind the scenes. This virtual training's been really great. You know, we're averaging over 100 people every week. Lots of great outreach there. And this month we've been looking at highway incidents, things that happen along the roadways. So today we're going to take a look at vehicle fires. Okay, another type of incident that you'll find sort of along the roadways. Uh, so we're going to take a look at some different hazards and things. Vehicle fires. That topic sometimes seems pretty basic, right? And there's not much to it, right? We put water on the fire and it goes out, but maybe there's some things that you've seen while you're working on a vehicle fire and you're not quite sure what's going on. There's some special hazards here, and we're going to try to address those and tell you what they are and what to do about them. Okay. Some of our objectives for today, some things that you might want to think about on your way to the call. Pre-response. What are you thinking about before you even get there? Um, where do you park when you get there? We talked about that a lot in the previous weeks. A lot of those same objectives or ideas will roll over to this one. We'll talk about what kind of branch you might want to use or what would be best. Um, Approach angles is sort of which direction are you going to approach a burning vehicle from to fight the fire? What's the safest to place? We'll talk about some other tools, what other tools you might need um, while you're fighting a vehicle fire, and then we'll get into those special hazards um, and talk about those, and we'll get into a little bit of the chemistry of what's going on in a vehicle fire, and we'll finish up with incident cleanup. Um, there's going to be some videos here. Hopefully they'll be a little smooth. We'll share this presentation with you um, through that Google Drive, and so you can check that out if the videos don't come through clear on today's training. We're going to get started here with this video just to sort of set the scene of what's going on here, and we've got a burning vehicle and sort of busy out in the roadway. Engine compartments on fire. Fire's progressing. They're pulling this trailer. It's a camping trailer, so it's like a little portable house that you take to go camping, right? Um, they're trying to disconnect it, but it won't work. Here comes the fire brigade. Um, so they're ready to to save the day here. Um, this fellow's boy, he doesn't seem like he's in a big hurry. We don't want to run around like crazy on these incidents, but maybe I'd have a little bit more ambition to try to stop this fire before it spreads into that trailer. The hose is stuck in the nozzle there. Oh, there he goes. He's still kind of taking his time. There's bystanders hanging around watching. Ooh, there's some power lines over top. Sometimes that smoke can get enough smoke particles in it that cause some arcing of the power lines, so that's maybe a hazard there. Still no water, right? But what's happened is that the parking brake or the transmission, whatever that's holding it's burnt through. So now the vehicle's rolling away. It's crashed into the fire truck. It's on fire. Or it's potentially could potentially catch. Oh, traffic. There's still traffic in the way, so it's a busy roadway. Haven't really addressed the traffic issues. Um, oh, well, there goes the fire truck. So the fire truck's at least and we've got the fire truck away from the burning vehicle, right? So this goes on, and eventually, they're going to get some water on this fire at some point in time, and you're going to see some civilians grab a fire hose and try to do something. You look at the direction that he's fighting the fire from, sort of letting the trailer continue to burn. Uh, so lots going on here. The video continues on for a little bit, but what did we look at here? What did we see during this video? And this is uh, couple different errors there, right? They were slow to get the hose stretched and slow to get water out. May probably didn't park uh, in a great location, since the burning vehicle ended up rolling into them. Um, the direction that they were attacking the fire from was going to let that trailer continue to burn. So, lots of things that they could improve on for sure there. So that sort of sets the stage for our training today, right? We don't want something like that to happen. Somebody, yeah, Jose is saying, hey, I think they parked in the wrong direction. Absolutely. We'll get to that in just a little bit. But before we even get there on the scene and we're parking, right? What are we thinking about? And a lot of your fire brigades here in the US, when you make a call to 911, you make that emergency call, it's answered at a dispatch center. Um, and then that dispatch center takes all the information and then sends the fire brigade. But we still get all the information about what's going on. For you guys, if you've got someone at the fire brigade that's answering the phone, internally, you guys have all the information that they're gathering when the person calls it in. So we want to start using that information as we're getting our gear on, as we're getting into the truck, as we're riding in the engine to the fire, right? These are the things that we're thinking about. What type of vehicle's burning, right? Is it a motorcycle? If it's a motorcycle, maybe we could put the fire out with an extinguisher, right? Is it a big commercial vehicle, a big truck that hauls goods? Maybe there's a different hazard there. Is it an electric vehicle? Is it an electric bus? Right? What's burning? You know, where is it at? As we start to think about where it's at, that's going to tell us what other issues there might be. If it's out along a sort of a rural road where there's no buildings or anything around, there's no exposures, that might make things a bit easier. Um, but is there water available? If it's a big vehicle and we need more water than we're carrying in our engine, where's the closest water that we can get? Or should we be calling for more resources? Can we call the next fire brigade over to come and help us? Can we make that decision before we even get to the call, right? As we're thinking things over, do we realize, like, oh, okay, um, you know, I know I'm going to need more water. I know I'm going to need that help. So let's get those started faster. Is the call busy downtown area, central business district where there's lots of traffic all the time? How are we going to control that traffic? Does somebody need to call to the police to get the police to get there and control traffic for us, And then are there exposures? And exposure um, is anything else that might catch fire, right? So what's near it that we might have to worry about? Is it in a parking lot where there's going to be multiple other vehicles that are going to catch fire? We're going to have multiple vehicle fires going, or is it next to a building? It's going to involve the building on fire. So lots of different things here. So apparatus placement, we can. There's lots of examples available out there, right? Here is a limited access highway. This is the on ramp. It's a school bus that's burning, and the fire truck is parked again in a bad spot, right? And this one, the fire truck's making a quick retreat, backing away, so that it doesn't get hit by this burning school bus, right? It's another example of poor placement. Uh, a different example here. Here we've got a little bit better apparatus placement, right? We're parking away from the vehicle. Um, these guys are getting out pretty quickly. Um, they've got the water on the fire right away. This is good. Maybe this is a good example of apparatus placement. The truck's in the right spot. They're extinguisher. Oh no! Oh no! Oh no! There, there it goes again. At the vehicle's uh, you know, given way, brakes have gone, or whatever's holding it, and the car's off, rolled down the hill. So we had this time we had good apparatus placement, good appliance placement, but we didn't do anything to check that. So we're back to where do we park the truck, right? Where do we park the engine? And this diagram, of course, it should sort of be a mirror image, depending on where you're at and what side of the road you're driving on. This one's set up if you drive on the right-hand side of the road, but the principles apply, right? Mirror the image. Um, we've talked about this a bunch, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because of the last couple weeks we've done this, but uphill upwind is important, right? And we just showed you a couple of examples. What happens when you park that truck downhill of the incident? Something happens that it starts rolling. Uh, so uphill upwind is very important. Upwind, certainly, if we don't have access to breathing apparatus or something like that, we want to stay upwind so we're not breathing all those toxic chemicals that are coming off of that fire. We're parking on an angle so that we block traffic. The area that we're working in is sort of that safety shadow. Okay. Um, the last wording on their wheels turned. Think about this, right? And what I've got written there in the bottom, plan on being hit. So whenever you place your fire appliance, you want to assume that someone is going to crash into you. Okay. And then if someone does crash into you, that's going to push the appliance. And where is it going to go? So in this particular example, um, if you're looking at this, when I park, I'm gonna turn the wheels, I'm gonna turn the steering wheel and point the front wheels of the truck all the way to the right-hand side so that if someone crashes into the truck, it's going to steer it away. It's going to drive it away from where we're working. Okay. So think about that. If you're an operator, when you park that truck, you want to turn that steering wheel one direction, one way or the other, so that if somebody crashes into the fire truck and pushes it, it'll steer the truck away from where you're working. So just something to think about that maybe you haven't considered in the past. How about what are we going to choose so far as the branch? You've got a couple of different um, choices there, uh, but what we're looking at uh, to be most effective in these vehicle fires, we want to use whatever you may call this type of nozzle that you see here. Um, we call it a combination nozzle or a fog nozzle or a fog combination branch, fog branch. Um, I've Some of you guys call it a diffuser branch. I can't think. There's a couple of different names that I've heard for it, but this is where we can choose between a narrow, straight stream or a wider open fog pattern. And we're going to choose that one, and we want to open that pattern up just a little bit. We don't want to open it as wide as it goes, but about a 45 degree angle with this diffuser pattern that it puts out. It's breaking the water droplets up into smaller water droplets, which is working for more rapid steam conversion. And in an open air environment where ventilation can't be controlled, that's going to work best for extinguishing your vehicle fire. All right. Uh, when you're picking those nozzles, those branches, um, you know, the flow that's recommended is 500 liters per minute, is the recommended flow on a vehicle fire. So keep that in the back of your mind. If you have nozzles that don't flow that much, you just have to judge whether it's effective or not, and whether you need to change tactics or branches if you can't get enough water on that fire to get your sufficient cooling. Okay. Does that mean that you can't use it with your jet nozzle or your smooth bore, or whatever you call that solid stream nozzle, you certainly can. But preferred is this diffuser nozzle combination fog, whatever. Okay. This video is a little bit hard to see and it takes a little bit of time, but as we roll into this one, this is our topic about approach angles and what direction should you be walking up toward the vehicle. And things sort of skip here. It's hard to see the firefighters. They're out right now with the hoses. We can tell by the smoke that they're getting water on the fire. So they're doing pretty good here. They're standing by on this vehicle, what would be the driver's side, for you guys, the passenger side, for most of you anyway. They're working their way around, and they're gonna come around to the front here. So now they're working their way standing directly in front of the car, and they've got the fire knocked down somewhat. And if you, hopefully this is coming through nice and clear for you, but something happens right there, and something shoots out off of that car, and knocks down one of the firefighters here. And this video will go on for a while yet, with this guy laying down on the ground. He's probably got some broken legs there because of what shot off of uh, this this car, right? So what's going on there? There's all these different hazards for a vehicle fire. In older vehicles, that front bumper was usually made of metal, and there were some gas pistons behind that front bumper that worked as a shock absorber. So if you got into an accident or into a crash, that bumper would push in on those shock absorbers and try to absorb some of the impact of that crash. So today's vehicles are built a little bit different than that. They're designed with what we call crumple zones. So they're actually designed to sort of get crushed up, um, and collapse, and that's what absorbs the energy to help protect the person uh, in the vehicle, right? But those older vehicles with those gas pistons on that front bumper, when they're exposed to heat, those gas pistons can violently explode and shoot that metal bumper off of the vehicle. And that's what was happening in that video there, where that bumper shot off and hit that guy and probably broke his legs. Okay. So as we look at the approach angles, you've got that front bumper toward the back of the vehicle. You have a fuel tank. Uh, the tires, as the tires burn, you've probably all seen this at one time or another. One of those tires will explode. Uh, Typically, it's not harmful, but it does throw some debris and things. So our approach angles, we always want to approach that vehicle at an angle. We don't want to ever stand directly in front or directly at the sides of them. We always want to approach, in on an angle, so that we're avoiding those bumpers that may come off. We're sort of staying away from those tires until we get that vehicle sufficiently cooled down. Okay, so approach angles, we're just not going to walk straight up to the front of the back. Always come in at a diagonal, at an angle, to be in the safest position where we can avoid some of these hazards. Okay. Uh, as we look at some of the other tools, um, we'll let this video play here. But this is also showing you the dangers, and be cautious of those approach angles. This guy's doing great. He's hustling. They got the line flaked out. But here, the hood, you see something just shot out from the side of that from that vehicle, and another one's going to come out right now. There's another one that shoots out. So you've got these things shooting out. What are these things? Well, these are the hydraulic props that hold up the hood, okay, or the bonnet. Um, so they're little gas pistons that are in there. So when you open that bonnet to look into the engine compartment, that's what holds it up. Um, a lot of the newer vehicles have that. Um, so those things, when they're exposed to fire again, can rapidly release, just like that front bumper, and come shooting out of there. And if you don't want that stuff hitting you. So again, it's sort of that approach angle that we're talking about on that last slide that you want to be very cautious of. And what other tools might you need? Well, as we've looked at a couple of these examples, down here on the bottom right hand corner of the screen, we've got those blocks of wood, those step chalks, right? Something that maybe you throw in front of or behind the wheels of that vehicle so it can't roll away. Just showed you a couple examples of these vehicles rolling away um, when they're on fire. We don't want that to happen. So we ought to have something that if the vehicle's not on a level surface, that we can throw under there to keep it from rolling away from us or rolling towards us. Um, some sort of a pry bar, whether it's a Halligan tool, whether it's a crowbar, or whether it's just a piece of rebar. You might need something that to pry open the boot, to pry open the bonnet, to pry open doors to get into access areas that are burning. You may need some sort of a cutting tool, like an axe. Down in the bottom left-hand corner, there's a window punch that's designed, to break the tempered safety glass. If you might need to break a window to do your suppression. So just some other tools to think about having available that you may need when you're working on a vehicle fire. Okay. Now we're gonna move into what I'm gonna call some special hazards. Okay. So some things that maybe you've seen working on a fire and weren't sure quite what was going on. So we'll take a look here at this video. Um, Notice this guy's not wearing what we would consider full PPE. And look at that. Something just sort of, we had this little explosion, right? And you can see this bright white burning fire. And he's putting water in underneath of the steering column. And because the steering wheel's on that side. And something sort of exploded, and you've got this stuff up there. He wasn't wearing his BA, so his face was exposed. Okay, so what's going on there, right? Have you seen something like that before? This is another example. Again, not wearing what we would consider full PPE, so he doesn't have the BA on. But getting the hose out there, they're gonna start putting water on the fire, and I don't know how clearly you can see this. Um, but once he starts putting some water on the fire, we're going to see that similar thing. We're going to see that intense, bright white light, violently reactive, you know, explosion there. So, uh, and actually, when you watch that happen, you can see one of those pieces of whatever that may be goes up and lands on his back there. That probably ends up ruining that PPE that he's wearing. And he just continues to put water in there, and it continues to violently react like that. So what's going on there? Well, this is burning magnesium. Okay, magnesium is a lightweight, um, strong but lightweight metal that's being used in your newer vehicles. Um, Places that we see it most commonly are right under the dash. They're using it as components of the steering column. It's the most common place that we're seeing it in these vehicle fires. And this is the chemistry, this is the science behind it. Uh, I don't want you to necessarily get wrapped up in this, but I like to take an intellectual approach to firefighting, right? I like to know what's going on and know the science behind it. So what we've got here in this first chemical reaction, Mg is magnesium. It's a solid, right? And when it's burning, uh, exposed to heat and begins to burn as this combustible metal, it when it burns, it combines with oxygen, obviously, right? And as that burning metal's combining with the oxygen, the chemical reaction that we get creates magnesium oxide, just like a white powder, but it also creates energy, creates a bright white ultraviolet light and heat. So that's what's going on there when you see that intense bright white burning on a vehicle fire. That's telling you I've got magnesium burning. Okay. The second chemical reaction that we have here. So now we've got the burning magnesium, and then we add water to it. Okay. When we add water, which is H2O, two hydrogen, one oxygen, when we add that water to that burning magnesium, it creates magnesium hydroxide and hydrogen gas. So it's splitting the water into its components of hydrogen and oxygen. Some of the hydrogen and oxygen is bonding with that magnesium, but some of that hydrogen is releasing itself as hydrogen gas. Okay. What do we know about hydrogen gas? Well, hydrogen gas is extremely flammable, it's extremely combustible, right? So if we have burning magnesium and we put water on that burning magnesium, we generate hydrogen gas. That hydrogen gas can get ignited then. So we're adding a flammable gas to the fire. And typically you see some sort of explosion with it. So that's where you're seeing that bright white burst of light. Those all that stuff that's shooting off of it, those are burning chunks of magnesium. If you continue putting water on it, you're going to continue to have this reaction. You're going to continue to produce the hydrogen gas. You're going to make the fire worse. Okay. So how do we extinguish this magnesium fire? Okay. How do we extinguish a magnesium fire? Well, magnesium fires, like any fire, we've got to remove one of the legs of the fire triangle, right? So you've got heat, fuel, and oxygen. So magnesium fire, how do we remove the oxygen? Depending on where you're from and what system you're using, would use a class D extinguisher. Some of the other systems, it may be a different letter, but your extinguisher that's designed for combustible metals, you can use that extinguisher. That'll remove the oxygen and help to put out the fire. You can also use something more basic where you could smother it with sand or dirt. What about heat? How do we remove the heat? Well, typically, when we remove the heat from the fire, we do that by adding water. But we can't use water because if we use water, we get that chemical reaction we just talked about. We produce hydrogen gas, explosion. So, to remove the heat, the only way we can remove the heat is to allow that heat to dissipate on its own, which takes time. Okay. And then what if we remove the fuel? How do we remove the fuel from a burning magnesium fire? Well, the only way to remove it is to let it all be consumed by the fire. So again, it's time, right? So your options are to smother it with sand or dirt, use a class D combustible metal extinguisher, not necessarily readily available. Can you smother it with sand if it's up in under the dash, under the steering wheel? No. So really, we see that magnesium burning, you've got to let it burn itself out. So we extinguish the rest of the fire around it, keep our water away from that spot, and then we just have to wait until that spot cools itself, burns itself down to stop that reaction, to stop that combustible metal fire. Okay. Uh, Here we're looking at an electric vehicle. This is in Japan. And you see the vehicle on the left, the white vehicle, smoke, explosion, fire, just seemingly out of nowhere, right? The car's just sitting there, smoke starts billowing out, and then explosion and fire. Or this was China, excuse me, not Japan, China. Okay. Interesting. Well, what's going on there, right? Well, these electric vehicles, most of them, the batteries that they're using are these lithium ion batteries. Okay. Well, here's a lithium ion battery. And if you'll notice on that battery there, there's a little a nail or a thumbtack or something that they've pushed into the battery. And when I start this video, somebody's just going to come along and push that in and puncture the battery. Okay, so just a puncture of a lithium ion battery. It's already steaming a little bit. Puncture that, and we've got smoke, gases, boom, explosion, fire. Okay, just by puncturing that lithium ion battery. Okay, so what in the world is going on here with these lithium batteries, right? Well, lithium has some interesting chemical reactions as well. Those lithium batteries, I'll show you one in the next video, what they look like inside. It's like a thin piece of foil made out of lithium. Okay. But what happens when we mix lithium with some external factors, right? And specifically water. What happens when lithium, the metal, and we're not talking about burning lithium. We're just talking about um, just plain lithium, and we mix it with water. You combine lithium with water and it creates this lithium hydroxide and hydrogen gas. And while it's doing that in an exothermic chemical reaction, which means that it's producing heat. Okay. So lithium, when it gets exposed to moisture or water, has this rapid and violent reaction with hydrogen gas, and it's exothermic, so it's producing heat, so it causes a fire. And if it's contained within a battery, sometimes we get an explosion right away. Okay, so lithium that's in these batteries, if it's damaged somehow, and we'll look at that, um, if it's damaged somehow, we get these chemical reactions that cause fire, right? So this right here, this is a just your standard, 2A battery. Well, it's not standard because it's a lithium battery. Okay. So what this guy's gonna do is he's don't do this. Please don't do this. Okay, but he's gonna cut the outer casing of this battery and he's gonna pull it apart to see what's inside. And what's inside is this metal lithium foil. Okay. So he's going to pull that out. As soon as he pulls that out, it's going to start reacting with the oxygen. It's going to start to tarnish right away. It's going to go from shiny and already it's starting to tarnish. Okay. So all he's going to do is take this lithium metal foil. It's going to fold up and he has a glass baking dish with some water in it. And as soon as he throws that in there, immediately you see gas being produced, fire, and then bang, an explosion. Okay, that's that reaction that I just talked about there. That's that exothermic chemical reaction. That lithium just exposed to water immediately starts producing hydrogen gas and heat. The heat reacts with that hydrogen gas. It causes an explosion. Um, you know, so as we're fighting these vehicle fires that have these batteries, um, we've got all sorts of stuff that could go on here. How do we deal with them, right? So lithium batteries, the issue with these lithium batteries, and we see these in the electric vehicles, but they're also in our cell phone. They're in um, if you've seen electric bicycles around, the electric scooters, there's so many of these things. What can happen? Well, lithium gets into this situation called a thermal runaway. And there's lots of sort of technical terms on this chart, but let me just walk you sort of through the basics of it, right? So on this chart, the up and down axis is your temperature, and your vertical axis is temperature. Your horizontal axis is time. Okay, and there's some sort of abuse to this battery, right? And by abuse, it could be thermal, which means that battery just gets overheated, okay, causing this reaction to start. There could be electrical abuse, which is when it's improperly charged or there's some sort of electrical short circuit inside. One of the problems here in America, we've got lots of problems with these battery fires because people will purchase something that uses one of these batteries and then they'll lose the charger. And instead of buying the original charger that came with that particular battery operated thing, they buy just a cheap one, right? The cheapest one they can find to plug in and recharge it. But the cheaper battery chargers don't have the features that will stop the charging when the battery's full. So you get that sort of electrical abuse of that battery. Or we're talking about a mechanical abuse of the battery. That's what we saw in the video earlier where they punctured the lithium battery and it immediately gas, fire, explosion. Okay. So we've got some sort of abuse to that battery. It could be a car that was in an accident, an electric vehicle that's in an accident, and this process could start and break out hours down the road. So what happens? We've got this abuse, and with this abuse, okay, something happens. There's some sort of short inside, and the heat level inside that battery begins to rise. At that point in time, there's some fuses that are inside of these batteries that can cause it to the fuse shorts itself out, and it stops it right then and there. Okay, and maybe it's just one of the cells in the battery, so the battery's performance is kind of degraded, but everything stops right then and there. If that safety feature doesn't work or it doesn't have any kind of internal fusing or anything like that, the heat continues to rise. And as it continues to rise, it moves out of this first stage of thermal runaway into the second stage. As it gets into that second stage, some of the components inside the battery start to decompose. Heat is now building up within the battery. Uh, you begin to get short circuiting inside the battery, separators between the different layers within the battery begin to melt. The electrolytes, the solution that's inside of the battery to help produce the electricity, begins to become volatile. All right. And now the battery, the container for the battery is starting to get destroyed, starting to melt through or something like that as we near the end of that second stage. That's where we enter into that third stage where now the package of the battery has been compromised. Now we've got air exposure to the battery, and then all sorts of stuff starting to happen inside there. The cathode's starting to decompose. The electrolyte solution inside that began to get volatile is now oxidizing, producing stuff that can ignite. And now that thermal runaway is taking place. So now that heat is building up inside that battery, and it's a chain reaction that cannot be stopped once it gets started. So there we've entered into that thermal runaway, and then the next step is that battery failure, that outbreak of fire, and that thermal runaway is going to continue, you know, until it uses up all of the fuel that's in there, and that chain reaction gets completed. Okay, so what do we do? How do we've got a vehicle fire, that an electric vehicle fire that is burning there. How do we stop it? So again, right, we're back to this fire triangle: oxygen, heat, fuel. Can we stop the oxygen? Yeah, we can. Uh, Pretty expensive though, right? You could use a dry chemical extinguisher on it, and a dry chemical extinguisher will put out the fire from a battery fire. But the chemical extinguishers, they don't do anything to remove the heat, and the battery's in thermal runaway. So the heat's going to continue to produce. So you're going to knock the flames out, but the heat's going to continue, and that fire is going to break out again once the heat builds up and you get the right mixture again. One option is a fire blanket, and I'm going to show a little bit of a video in a little bit here that'll show using that. Fire blankets are neat. They make giant fire blankets that are big enough that you can put over top of a burning vehicle. They work really well. They start so very cost prohibitive. Some of them are only one-time use. Um, the ones that you can use more than once, of course, they're 5,000 plus US dollars a piece. So not really a good option there. If we want to remove the heat, yeah, we can remove the heat from this, but we've got to use very large volumes of water. Because that chemical reaction, that thermal runaway continues, you'll have to constantly continue cooling the vehicle with large volumes of water. How many of you guys have access to large volumes of water, right? Your engines don't contain, you're not carrying a lot of water on your engines. You don't have ready access to hydrants close by, so you're not going to be able to cool that. So what about the fuel? How do we remove the fuel from that fire? Again, it's time, right? You've got to let time go by and just let that fuel get consumed. So you're talking about a battery fire, you got to let the thing burn itself out, okay? What we've found here with a lot of these fires that we've been seeing here in the US, we're talking a minimum of 100,000 liters to cool it enough to stop the thermal runaway and extinguish the fire. How many of y'all have access that you can continuously apply 100,000 liters of water over a period of 2 to 3 hours? Right? It's not realistic. I can't do it here in the US, right? It's not realistic. So what are we going to do if we get an electric vehicle on fire, these battery fires? Protect the exposures, make sure the fire can't spread anywhere else, let the fire burn itself out. Again, when you're doing this, if you've got to let a fire burn itself out, don't forget the public education piece of that, which is to be sure you let the crowd that's gathering around you know what's going on, right? Um, know that why you're just standing around, why you're not putting out the fire, right? This video here, I see Benson's out there in the crowd. This is from Benson's department, South Metro Fire Department, and there's a voiceover commentary here that I'm not playing for you guys. But what's going on here is that there was a fire in a garage, and that fire, they determined that, family got out, they extinguished the fire and determined that the fire began from this electric vehicle that was in the garage. So um, uh, they've this department's very progressive. They've got you know really who a lot of our departments sort of look towards for dealing with these electric vehicle fires. They put together a nice program about them, but you know they've got this vehicle that's in the garage. They understand that because it's an electric vehicle, it's almost guaranteed to be in that thermal runaway. They're never going to be able to cool this thing enough where it's sitting. So, they're hooking the vehicle up. They're using one of their utility vehicles with some chains. They're going to pull it out of that garage. Here's one of these vehicle fire blankets. Okay. So they're pulling the thing out of the garage. They're gonna wrap it in the blanket to to get cut the oxygen off, right? And eventually they're gonna haul this thing up onto a tow truck, use another blanket to wrap it up and secure it, take it off to a safe location where it's just gonna let that heat work itself out through that thermal runaway. Um, Over in Europe, right? For some of these electric vehicle fires, they've got a big container, like a dumpster, or I don't know what you would call it, right? Like a big container that you would put refuse or garbage in, that they fill up with water, and they'll haul these vehicles into, basically they're putting in a giant tub of water, right? And just letting the vehicle sit in a tub of water to get rid of to cool things off um, for the electric vehicle. So very challenging. How do we deal with those? So for most of you guys, right, it's you're gonna have to let the thing burn itself out, and protect the exposures around it. So that's going to be one of the most challenging things that you guys start to run into, you know. Um, so as we start to wrap things up here, just something else to think about. If you're using those large volumes of water, um, uh, think about the environment a little bit, right? Think about when you're anytime you're fighting a vehicle fire, when you're spraying that water onto the fire, that water is reducing the heat, but then it's also picking up all sorts of different contaminants and things and chemicals. And as it runs off, um, start to think a little bit about the environment that you're living in, right? If you've got this vehicle fire that you're extinguishing and it's near a water supply, like a stream or something like that, do you want, because is there something you could do to protect that stream so that that water that's running off of it that's filled with chemicals doesn't go into that water supply that someone may be drinking from, or somebody may be doing their laundry from, washing their clothes in, or something like that? Think about some of those things as you leave the incident scene. Think about clearing off the roadway if you've got enough water left over to hose down the roadway so that there isn't debris and things that are out in traffic that might uh, do a tire puncture or something like that to traffic further down the road. What can you do before you leave the scene to try to make things a little bit safer once you leave, that there isn't any other hazards that may have been caused by that vehicle? So just, you know, think about what you can do. Here, uh, where we're from, we don't leave a vehicle fire until a tow truck comes and hauls it away. And then we sort of clean up the roadway and that sort of thing. If the road's damaged, we notify whoever's responsible for the road so that they can come out and take care of any damage to the roadway. I realize that for a lot of your incidents that the vehicle's just gonna stay there once you extinguish it, and it'll eventually be removed later. But just think about the way you're leaving that scene, and what good you can do to the public by cleaning up the scene a little bit before you leave. Take that little bit of extra time. Um, you know, just sort of something to think about. We're getting close to our ending time here. Uh, Again, our objectives. Take all that information that you gathered from the caller. Start planning. Do I need extra help? Do I need extra water? What are we going to do about traffic? Is it in a busy area? Start thinking about all those things. When we place the appliance, uphill, upwind, turn the wheels away from traffic, block traffic, park on an angle, make some safe space for us. Grab that diffuser branch or combination or fog branch, whatever you might call that thing. We're hoping that we're flowing, a good volume of water on there as we approach the fire. We're coming in at an angle. We're not going straight into the side, just straight in to the front or the rear of it. Um, some other tools, pry bars and things like that, something to block the wheels to keep it from rolling away. As we're fighting that fire, if we see that intense, bright white light, and every time we hit it with water, it explodes, we're going to stay away from that. We realize, aha, this is burning magnesium. Let's just let that burn itself out. If we've got an electric vehicle, now we're thinking, we're going to be in thermal runaway. We can't fix that. Let's clear everything away from the vehicle. We're going to just have to let this thing burn out. Somebody's going to have to watch it for a while to make sure it doesn't catch fire again. And then before we leave the incident, how can we make the area a little bit better uh, based on what happened. So there we are. Um, kind of moved through things a little quickly. I see a couple requests. Can you share this handout? Absolutely. That link that I posted to our Google Drive, I'll drop it there again. I'm going to drop this whole. So, what I'm going to do, I'm going to put two different versions of this in there. I'm going to put a PDF version of it, but I'm also going to put the whole presentation. I'm going to warn you, you're going to want to be on Wi-Fi or something for these to download this, okay? Because it's big. It's a big file because of the videos that are in it. But then you'll have those videos to share if you'd like to do that, okay? So, with that being said, I want to open the floor for any questions quickly. Couple minutes for questions. We could definitely address some in the tea time as well. But the floor is open. You can use the raise hand feature, drop a question in the chat, uh, or just unmute yourself and ask your question if there's something burning. If you've got a burning question. See what I did there? Uh,
Yeah, yeah, Mike.
let me see. Oh, Errol, did you have a question? If you did, I had my volume turned
Not,
down. Ask me one more time.
not, not really a question. I was just acknowledging what you did there.
Ah, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right. No urgent question right at the moment. I'm up against my sort of 1 hour mark, so let me wrap up this training session with a just a cautionary note, right? Like um, a vehicle fire seems simple. We're just gonna get there, pull the hose, put water on it. But it's not that easy, right? We've got to think about other stuff. Might the vehicle roll away? Where's the smoke gonna go? Where's the water runoff gonna go? Is there these hidden hazards? Magnesium burning, lithium batteries burning, tires exploding, gas pistons shooting off of it. Um, Lots of danger. So don't underestimate the hazard here when you're dealing with that vehicle fire. Thank you to all of you for coming, uh, listening to me teach here, taking time out of your own schedule, using your bundles to join us here. If you've got other people watching on your screen, please drop me an email with who those people are so I can get some certificates out to them as well. I know I saw at least one room full of people there. Let me know who's with you. I'll get you all some certificates. Um, Thank you to spending your time. We don't take for granted the fact that you guys are doing this on your own time, a lot of you. So thank you for that. Continue to build and put those tools in the toolbox. Uh, I've got plenty of seats available here. If you know somebody that would benefit from these trainings, please share that registration link. Check out our webpage, www.africafiremission.org. Go to the training materials page. All sorts of great free resources. I encourage you all to take advantage of all of them. And with that, I'll just wrap things up by saying I hope to see you all again next week.